A personal computer is a general-purpose computer whose size, capabilities and original sale price make it useful for individuals, and is intended to be operated directly by an end user with no intervening computer. Time-sharing models that allowed larger, more expensive mini-computer and mainframe systems to be used by many people, usually at the same time. Software applications for most personal computers include, but are not limited to, word processing, spreadsheets, databases, web browsers and email clients, digital media playback, games and many personal productivity and special-purpose software applications. Modern personal computers often have connections to the Internet, allowing access to the World Wide Web and a wide range of other resources. Personal computers may be connected to a local area network, either by a cable or a wireless connection. A personal computer may be a laptop computer or a desktop computer running an operating system such as Windows, Linux, or Macintosh OS. Early computer owners usually had to write their own programs to do anything useful with the machines, which even did not include an operating system. The very earliest microcomputers, equipped with a front panel, required hand-loading of a bootstrap program to load programs from external storage. Before very long, automatic booting from permanent read-only memory became universal. Today's users have access to a wide range of commercial software, freeware and free and open-source software, which are provided in ready-to-run or ready-to-compile form. Software for personal computers, such as applications and video games, are typically developed and distributed independently from the hardware or OS manufacturers, whereas software for many mobile phones and other portable systems is approved and distributed through a centralized online store. Since the early 1990s, Microsoft operating systems and Intel hardware have dominated much of the personal computer market, first with MS-DOS and then with Windows. Popular alternatives to Microsoft's Windows operating systems include Apple's OS X and free open-source Unix-like operating systems such as Linux and BSD. AMD provides the major alternative to Intel's processors. History. The Programmer 101 was the first commercial, desktop personal computer, produced by the Italian company Olivetti, and invented by the Italian engineer Pier Giorgio Perotto, inventor of the magnetic card system. The project started in 1962. It was launched at the 1964 New York World's Fair, and volume production began in 1965, the computer retailing for $3,200. NASA bought at least 10 Programmer 101s and used them for the calculations for the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing. Then ABC used the Programmer 101 to predict the presidential election of 1968, and the U.S. military used the machine to plan their operations in the Vietnam War. The Programmer 101 was also used in schools, hospitals, government offices. This marked the beginning of the era of the personal computer. In 1968, Hewlett-Packard was ordered to pay about $900,000 in royalties to Olivetti after their Hewlett-Packard 9100A was ruled to have copied some of the solutions adopted in the Programmer 101, including the magnetic card, the architecture and other similar components. The Soviet Mir series of computers was developed from 1965 to 1969 in a group headed by Viktor Glushkov. It was designed as a relatively small-scale computer for use in engineering and scientific applications and contained a hardware implementation of a high-level programming language. Another innovative feature for that time was the user interface, combining a keyboard with a monitor and light pen for correcting texts and drawing on screen. In what was later to be called the mother of all demos, SRI researcher Douglas Engelbart in 1968 gave a preview of what would become the staples of daily working life in the 21st century: email, hypertext, word processing, video conferencing and the mouse. The demonstration required technical support staff and a mainframe time-sharing computer that were far too costly for individual business use at the time. By the early 1970s, people in academic or research institutions had the opportunity for single-person use of a computer system in interactive mode for extended durations. Although these systems would still have been too expensive to be owned by a single person, early personal computers, generally called microcomputers, were often sold in a kit form and in limited volumes, and were of interest mostly to hobbyists and technicians. Minimal programming was done with toggle switches to enter instructions, and output was provided by front panel lamps. Practical use required adding peripherals such as keyboards, computer displays, disk drives, and printers. Microlen was the earliest commercial, non-kit microcomputer based on a microprocessor, the Intel 8008. It was built starting in 1972 and about 90,000 units were sold. In 1973, the IBM Los Gatos Scientific Center developed a portable computer prototype called SCAMP based on the IBM Palm processor with a Philips compact cassette drive, small Quantum full-function keyboard. SCAMP emulated an IBM 1130 mini computer in order to run APL 1130. In 1973, APL was generally available only on mainframe computers, and most desktop-sized microcomputers such as the Wang 2200 or HP 9800 offered only BASIC. Because SCAMP was the first to emulate APL 1130 performance on a portable, single-user computer, PC Magazine in 1983 designated SCAMP a revolutionary concept, and the world's first personal computer. This seminal, single-user portable computer now resides in the Smithsonian Institution, Washington, D.C. Successful demonstrations of the 1973 SCAMP prototype led to the IBM 5100 portable microcomputer launched in 1975 with the ability to be programmed in both APL and BASIC for engineers, analysts, statisticians and other business problem solvers. In the late 1960s, such a machine would have been nearly as large as 2 desks and would have weighed about half a ton. Another seminal product in 1973 was the Xerox Alto, developed at Xerox's Palo Alto Research Center. It had a graphical user interface which later served as inspiration for Apple Computers Macintosh, and Microsoft's Windows operating system. Also in 1973, Hewlett-Packard introduced fully basic programmable microcomputers that fit entirely on top of a desk, including a keyboard, a small one-line display and printer. The Wang 2200 microcomputer of 1973 had a full-size cathode ray tube and cassette tape storage. These were generally expensive specialized computers sold for business or scientific uses. The introduction of the microprocessor, a single chip with all the circuitry that formerly occupied large cabinets, led to the proliferation of personal computers after 1975. In 1976, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak sold the Apple I computer circuit board, which was fully prepared and contained about 30 chips. The Apple I computer differed from the other hobby computers of the time at the beckoning of Paul Terrell, owner of the Byte Shop, who gave Steve Jobs his first purchase order for 50 Apple I computers only if the computers were assembled and tested and not a kit computer, so he would have computers to sell to everyone, not just people that could assemble a computer kit. The Apple I was delivered was still a kit computer as it did not have a power supply, case, or keyboard as delivered to the Byte Shop. The first successfully mass-marketed personal computer was the Commodore PET, introduced in January 1977. But back-ordered and not available until later in the year. At the same time, the Apple II was introduced, and the TRS-80 from Tandy Corporation, Tandy Radio Shack, in summer 1977. Delivered in September in a small number. Mass-market ready assembled computers allowed a wider range of people to use computers. focusing more on software applications and less on development of the processor hardware. During the early 1980s, home computers were further developed for household use, with software for personal productivity, programming and games. They typically could be used with a television already in their home as the computer display, with low detail blocky graphics and a limited color range, and text about 40 characters wide by 25 characters tall. Sinclair Research, a UK company, produced the ZX series, the ZX80, ZX81, and the ZX Spectrum. The latter was introduced in 1982, and totaled 8 million units sold. Following came the Commodore 64, totaled 17 million units sold. In the same year, the NEC PC-98 was introduced, which was a very popular personal computer that sold in more than 18 million units. Another famous personal computer, the revolutionary Amiga 1000, was unveiled by Commodore on July 23, 1985. The Amiga 1000 featured a multitasking, windowing operating system, color graphics with a 4096 color palette, stereo sound, Motorola 68000 CPU, 256 kilobytes RAM, and 880 kilobytes 3.5-inch disk drive, for $1,295. Somewhat larger and more expensive systems, or sometimes a home computer with additional interfaces and devices, although still low-cost compared with mini-computers and mainframes, were aimed at office and small business use, typically using high-resolution monitors capable of at least 80-column text display, and often no graphical or color drawing capability. Workstations were characterized by high-performance processors and graphics displays, with large-capacity local disk storage, networking capability, and running under a multitasking operating system. Business computers acquired color graphics capability and sound, and home computers and game systems users used the same processors and operating systems as office workers. Mass-market computers had graphics capabilities and memory comparable to dedicated workstations of a few years before. Even local area networking, originally a way to allow business computers to share expensive mass storage and peripherals, became a standard feature of personal computers used at home. In 1982, the computer was named Machine of the Year by Time magazine. In the 2010s, several companies such as Hewlett-Packard and Sony sold off their PC and laptop divisions. As a result, the personal computer was declared dead several times during this time. Market and sales. In 2001, 125 million personal computers were shipped in comparison to 48,000 in 1977. More than 500 million personal computers were in use in 2002, and 1 billion personal computers had been sold worldwide from the mid-1970s up to this time. Of the latter figure, 75% were professional or work-related, while the rest were sold for personal or home use. About 81.5% of personal computers shipped had been desktop computers, 16.4% laptops and 2.1% servers. The United States had received 38.8% of the computers shipped, Europe 25%, and 11.7% had gone to the Asia-Pacific region, the fastest-growing market as of 2002. The second billion was expected to be sold by 2008. Almost half of all households in Western Europe had a personal computer, and a computer could be found in 40% of homes in United Kingdom, compared with only 13% in 1985. The global personal computer shipments were 350.9 million units in 2010, 308.3 million units in 2009, and 302.2 million units in 2008. The shipments were 264 million units in the year 2007, according to iSupply, up 11.2% from 239 million in 2006. In 2004, the global shipments were 183 million units, an 11.6% increase over 2003. In 2003, 152.6 million computers were shipped, at an estimated value of $175 billion. In 2002, 136.7 million PCs were shipped, at an estimated value of $175 billion. In 2000, 140.2 million personal computers were shipped, at an estimated value of $226 billion. Worldwide shipments of personal computers surpassed the 100 million mark in 1999, growing to 113.5 million units from 93.3 million units in 1998. In 1999, Asia had 14.1 million units shipped. As of June 2008, the number of personal computers in use worldwide hit 1 billion, while another billion is expected to be reached by 2014. Mature markets like the United States, Western Europe and Japan accounted for 58% of the worldwide installed PCs. The emerging markets were expected to double their installed PCs by 2012 and to take 70% of the second billion PCs. About 180 million computers were expected to be replaced and 35 million to be dumped into landfill in 2008. The whole installed base grew 12% annually, based on International Data Corporation data for Q2 2011. For the first time, China surpassed US in PC shipments by 18.5 million and 17.7 million respectively. This trend reflects the rising of emerging markets as well as the relative stagnation of mature regions. In the developed world, there has been a vendor tradition to keep adding functions to maintain high prices of personal computers. However, since the introduction of the One Laptop per Child Foundation and its low-cost X01 laptop, the computing industry started to pursue the price too. Although introduced only 1 year earlier, there were 14 million netbooks sold in 2008. Besides the regular computer manufacturers, companies are making especially rugged versions of computers have sprung up, offering alternatives for people operating their machines in extreme weather or environments. Deloitte consulting firm predicted that in 2011, smartphones and tablet computers as computing devices would surpass the PC's sales. As of 2013, worldwide sales of PCs had begun to fall as many consumers moved to tablets and smartphones for gifts and personal use. Sales of 90.3 million units in the fourth quarter of 2012 represented a 4.9% decline from sales in the fourth quarter of 2011. Global PC sales fell sharply in the first quarter of 2013. According to IDC data, the 14% year-over-year decline was the largest on record since the firm began tracking in 1994, and double what analysts had been expecting. The decline of Q2 2013 PC shipments marked the fifth straight quarter of falling sales. "This is horrific news for PCs," remarked an analyst. "It's all about mobile computing now. We have definitely reached the tipping point." Data from Gartner Inc. showed a similar decline for the same time period. China's Lenovo Group bucked the general trend as strong sales to first-time buyers in the developing world allowed the company's sales to stay flat. Overall, Windows 8, which was designed to look similar to tablet, smartphone software, was cited as a contributing factor in the decline of new PC sales. Unfortunately, it seems clear that the Windows 8 launch not only didn't provide a positive boost to the PC market, but appears to have slowed the market, said IDC Vice President Bob O'Donnell. In August 2013, Credit Suisse published research findings that attributed around 75% of the operating profit share of the PC industry to Microsoft and Intel. According to IDC, in 2013 PC shipments dropped by 9.8% as the greatest drop ever in line with consumers' trends to use mobile devices. Average selling price. Selling prices of personal computers steadily declined due to lower costs of production and manufacture, while the capabilities of computers increased. In 1975, an Altair kit sold for only around US $400. But required customers to solder components into circuit boards. Peripherals required to interact with the system in alphanumeric form instead of blinking lights would add another $2,000, and the resultant system was only of use to hobbyists. At their introduction in 1981, the US $1,795 price of the Osborne 1 and its competitor Capo was considered an attractive price point. These systems had text-only displays and only floppy disks for storage. By 1982, Michael Dell observed that a personal computer system selling at retail for about $3,000 US was made of components that cost the dealer about $600. Typical gross margin on a computer unit was around $1,000. The total value of personal computer purchases in the U.S. in 1983 was about $4 billion, comparable to total sales of pet food. By late 1998, the average selling price of personal computer systems in the United States had dropped below $1,000. For Microsoft Windows systems, the average selling price showed a decline in 2008-2009, possibly due to low-cost netbooks, drawing $569 for desktop computers and $689 for laptops at U.S. retail in August 2008. In 2009, ASP had further fallen to $533 for desktops and to $602 for notebooks by January, and to $540 and $560 in February. According to research firm NPD, the average selling price of all Windows portable PCs has fallen from $659 in October 2008 to $519 in October 2009. Terminology. PC is an initialism for personal computer. However, it is sometimes used in a different sense, referring to a personal computer with an Intel x86 compatible processor, very often running Microsoft Windows, which is a combination, sometimes also called Wintel. Although large portion of PCs are not shipped with pre-installed Windows operating systems, some PCs, including the OLPC Exos, are equipped with x86 or x64 processors but not designed to run Microsoft Windows. PC is used in contrast with Mac, an Apple Macintosh computer. This sense of the word is used in the Get a Mac advertisement campaign that ran between 2006 and 2009, as well as its rival, I'm a PC campaign, that appeared in 2008. Since Apple's transition to Intel processors starting 2005, all Macintosh computers are now PCs.